Living consciousness, opportunity in shifting perspective.
Good morning. We are here and so excited to share with you today. I am Dr. Tracy Covington. I'm here with my partner, Dr. Kurt Bickford. Good morning.
Good morning.
And we are Living-Consciousness. You can find us at living-consciousness.com as well as bickfordcovington.com if you'd like to know more information or registration opportunities as well as the other events that we offer in Growing Consciousness. So today we're here to share with you about our upcoming seminar, which is next Saturday, November 16th. We will be in San Bernardino, Southern California, San Bernardino, at the Hilton, and all the registration information for that seminar is available at those two websites I just listed. And you can work with our interactive calendar, and it will show you where the links are. You can also join us for our email subscription list. All you need to do is email me at bickfordcovington@verizon.net. So today, as I said, we're going to be highlighting our upcoming seminar, Holiness versus Truth. And I must say that these last couple seminars have really increased in intensity as far as the depth of the subject matter, and November's is going to be right in alignment with that. So Holiness versus Truth, Discernment and Personal Growth. And I just want to dive in today because we have some really awesome things to share with you regarding this, but I want to start with something that we do with each class. Dr. Bickford starts each seminar with a kind of an awareness of how we want to enter into the space of learning about consciousness, living in consciousness, growing consciousness. And I felt as I was looking at them today that they're very meaningful actually for everyday usage. So I thought I'd maybe highlight or actually go over these and maybe, well, not even maybe, but have Dr. Bickford explain a little in detail about how to approach this. So the first item on considerations for maximizing the experience of Living Consciousness seminars is to make time for the class. And of course, in this example, it's making time for consciousness and mindfulness and consciousness a priority. And his point in that is to be present. Then the second item is to remember that all things start with what we refer to as the small self as well as the capital S self. And Dr. Bickford, I was going to just kind of ask that you maybe identify for maybe a lot of listeners that aren't familiar with that just difference in small self and the capital S self, if you could help us understand that.
Well, we have to remember that there is only the self, that everything else around us are actors in this grand play of ours that's called life. And the purpose of life is to grow. There is no other purpose. So it's to grow and develop into that which we can maximally be. And so the distinction between the small s self and the large s self really has to do with consciousness and our alignment with that which is divine. And so when we say the small s self, we're really talking about egoic self. And those who live lives that are led by the ego, of course, end up having a life that is hard, difficult, struggling, suffering, full of pain and confusion. And once we move to a level of integrity and we start aligning with things that have to do with life itself, then there's spiritual energy in that which we do, and that spiritual energy is considered the largest self or the divine self.
Okay.
So we just have to remember that there is nothing that we can comprehend except through the subjective experience of life itself. And all else is just an expression of authority and therefore falsehood. It's all
Which
made
is a whole
up.
Seminar in itself.
It's all made up, in other words, and therefore all else just expresses degrees of truth, but not truth itself. So the alignment with higher self, divine self, it aligns with truth.
Thank you. The third item is suspend the tendency to be critical, rejecting, or judgmental. And you know that these things come from often a premature cognitive commitment. It's all egoic, but premature cognitive commitment. Can you give us an understanding of that?
Premature cognitive commitment comes from psychology, and it's that tendency of human beings to believe that they already know, that they already have the truth, and so they often are premature in their commitment to a belief system, and in that create specialness, which in creating specialness is really egoic. So any premature cognitive commitment is I don't want to hear the truth, I already have a belief system that I live my life by, and that's all ego.
I think the thing that also, just another way to say it, is that it means that no other information can get in.
Correct.
So we block any other possibility of knowingness or understanding.
Exactly.
By having that alignment to that pre-cognitive commitment.
Exactly. And the defense of ego, of course, is to criticize and to reject and to be judgmental or prejudge all things, because ego wants to be special. And part of knowing the truth from the ego's point of view is its own truth, and that makes it special.
So the practice of being judgmental or having even opinions is really exercising and growing our ego.
Exactly. We're reinforcing that which the ego already believes, and thereby we're not growing, we're stagnating. And so we really ask everybody to kind of suspend all beliefs and all belief systems as they expose themselves to the material that we share.
You know, this is so powerful, and there's so many times, I listen to people. We're both clinical psychologists, so we spend a great deal of time listening and engaging with lots of variety of wonderful people. But I often come across that statement of, I can't believe how this person thinks, or how can that person say that, and why don't they understand this or that? And it's all to do with this not letting any other information in. We do it out of fear too. We're fearful.
It's totally out of fear.
Letting others.
Totally out of fear, and that's the problem with listening to authority, because authority really rules by fear. As long as they can keep you imbalanced through the process of fear, then you're easy to lead.
And of course, I know many are just right now saying, well, if I don't have authority to believe in, what do I believe in? But again, that's a whole other seminar.
Well, you believe in the radical subjective truth, and that requires radical inner honesty. And that requires one to be introspective. It requires one to be contemplative. It requires one to align their life versus following rules. And those are different processes. And
I must say that was a powerful seminar in June. And if anybody's interested in that DVD or CD, we do have copies of that. Contact me through email, because it really that just becomes a very deep conversation. The next item on our considerations for maximizing the experience and growing consciousness is to suspend all beliefs and belief systems, which is just another point about letting go of the idea of needing authority.
Well, exactly. If we listen to authority, authority will tell us any number of things that are often contradicted by the world of science, and which includes psychology and quantum physics. And so we're going to exclude large bodies of truth and thereby follow rules and authority. We basically stagnate in our growth and our development, which thereby undermines the whole purpose of life itself. So we always ask people to be open to new possibilities, to recognize that there is no true authority. And that's hard for a lot of people to say, or to see. And so we often suggest to people that if they are traditional religionists or they're spiritually timid, that they not really participate in our seminars, because we're going to challenge anything that comes from an authoritative point of view.
Well, in fact, the point you make is the material presented during this course may be disturbing and therefore better left unexamined.
Exactly.
Just to the point.
Exactly. For those people who need to stay within their authoritative understanding, then this material is not for them.
Because that's not about growing consciousness. And to just say that really what you're identifying here is to be open to all the new possibilities, that there is no authority, and to be introspective, present to this awareness. And you also make a note about, in this maximizing our experience to growth in consciousness, is having radical subjectivity. Radical subjectivity.
Right.
Radical, can you expand a moment on what you're meaning by radical subjectivity?
Well, the subjective experience for the average human being is to endorse their own thoughts and their own feelings, their own perceptions, their own belief systems, all of which are egoic expressions. When we're being radically subjective, we're able then to back up a little bit and observe those things, observe our own thoughts, observe our feelings, our perceptions, our belief systems, and in that we realize those things are not us. Those things are witnessed, and anything that is witnessed is outside of the true self. And so to be radically subjective is the recognition that those things that you believe are you are not you. They're not truth. They're not divine. They're just learned. They're programmed. They're conditioned. And they become neural pathways in the brain based in memes of culture and religion.
So then the next point in maximizing the experience then is just in how to do that. And it's to be courageous, to take risks, to stretch oneself, to ask questions, not assume, and really, really seeking to understand.
Well, if we seek to understand, then we have to look at all aspects of what it means to be human, and that then includes the realms of science, what we're now learning from quantum physics, which happens to align with primordial wisdom. We have to look at human beings from an anthropological point of view, from a cultural point of view, a sociological point of view, a psychological point of view. And one of the things that many religions teach is to not be introspective, but to only follow, quote, the word. And by following the word, you're following authority from 2,000 years ago, 3,500 years ago, 5,500 years ago. And often out of that ignorance, it has little or no application into 21st century life.
Truly.
So following falsehood as a belief system will ultimately lead you to a great deal of pain and suffering.
It's a great point, and there's some really fun examples of that someday maybe we'll actually get to talk about. Some really very potent examples of how contextually those things are so altered in this day and age, and why these things are just so irrelevant. So you also are noting to be friendly, kind, gentle, compassionate, and the true self.
Well, those are aspects of the true self because they align with the advancement of life. Kind, gentle, and compassionate enable life to move forward. Just the opposite of those, being unkind, unfriendly, being harsh, having no compassion, goes away from life. It detracts from life, and those are the things that lead to conflict and violence, hatred, and all the things that come with that.
I think those are things that often, if anybody's listening to this particular radio show, they're probably already attempt to be friendly and kind and gentle, but this again is a radical level of it, so that even met with hostility or disagreement from others or conflict, that there's still this gentleness that shows up, this kindness that shows up, and that's really the courage.
Correct. It's easy to let ego run the show, and in that we create separateness. We see separateness. When we see separateness, then there's a good and a bad, a superior and an inferior. There's a right and a wrong. And from the ultimate stance of truth, none of that is true. There is no right or wrong. There's only expressions of levels of consciousness.
So the last couple points I'm going to combine, and that is you note to do the homework. And every seminar there's usually a meditation or a contemplation that you suggest to follow through with, to really ingrain and understand and deepen the teachings of the day. But again, just to identify that homework means listening to a show like this, or doing reading, or sitting and doing a contemplation about what you just heard and really trying it on. So do the homework, but only if growth is your intention. I thought that was a really great statement. Only if growth is your intention.
Well, some people attend seminars so that they can sound smart at cocktail parties. And that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about a way of life. We're talking about how we orient our life, not only once a week as we attend service or a lecture or listen to a radio show, but spiritual development is that way of life. It's the orientation that one has to one's life. And in that, it brings its own rewards. So the only question is, which is the direction of your motives? Are you motive towards egoic self-gain and aggrandizement, or are you motivated towards the divine expression of that which you are?
Beautiful. So in closing out the considerations for maximizing the experience and consciousness and growth in consciousness is to remember who you are and why you are pulled towards this. Pulled towards this information, why you're listening right now, why you read or seek out books on consciousness and spirituality.
Correct.
Just really embrace that fact of why you are here. I love that.
Right.
I really love
well,
that.
one has to ask those questions. If you attend church because church is a social gathering for you, then that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that point of view, and yet you miss out perhaps the purpose of what that church exists for. Or if we're talking about a temple or a synagogue, it doesn't matter what it is you're attending. It's what's your orientation, what's your motivation for doing so.
It takes some inner honesty sometimes to really know that.
It takes profound inner honesty, because many of us do what we've done because we were taught to do it. Not because it's right, not because it aligns with truth, not because it aligns with that which is divine. That includes higher self.
We habitually are drawn to that which we are familiar to.
Exactly. The brain likes patterning, and so
that's such a good point.
So tradition is a patterning, and so often, as you and I have traveled in various places, sometimes we run into traditions that we're told, well, we do this because we've done this for 2,000 years, or we've done this for 10,000 years, and that is not radical subjectivity, because some of those actions, some of those behaviors are deleterious to life itself. And how can that align with truth? How can that align with that which is the greater good?
Yes. Well, so in moving into the subject area of holiness versus truth, discernment, and personal growth, I think probably paramount here is the definition of consciousness. And you're going to be teaching actually on this quite a bit in the seminar, but maybe you could highlight a few points about what is consciousness? What is important for us to understand about consciousness?
Well, consciousness is so much more than just the awareness that one is alive, and that is a definition of consciousness, but it goes far beyond that. In that consciousness, universal consciousness, the consciousness of Source, the consciousness of the divine, the consciousness of God, is that which existed prior to the manifestation of form itself. And consciousness then is that substrate of the human capacity to know and experience on the one hand, to perceive and witness, but it's also that which gives life and form to all that is. Consciousness is the universe, and all of us are within that universe. So we have to think of consciousness as this impersonal quality of Source itself. It is that which imbues life with the awareness of its own life, with or without that awareness, actually. And from that point of view, then, there is no favorite life form. There are no chosen people. We have to remember that. God is. and as such loves all that which is. There isn't specialness in this. There are no demarcations of superior and inferior, better or worse, good or bad, right or wrong. That's all dualism, and that's where ego lives, and that's also where religion lives. So any interpretations otherwise are really of the ego and not of God itself. Placing value on things is of the ego itself. So all variation is an expression of God, and therefore all variation is divine in its origin. All things are equal. There isn't a better, there isn't a right stance or a wrong stance. There's only expressions of consciousness itself. And so when we look at that, all behavior, and when we say all behavior, we're talking about all thoughts, feelings, perceptions, belief systems, and the actions that follow, are merely an expression of a level of consciousness. So in that we recognize that if one knows better, they do better. So alignment with truth becomes very important. And so when we look at life from that point of view, then there really is no place for condemnation, hate, fear, criticism, judgment, prejudice. All are expressions of that ego. And so when we look at the issue of equality, then, equality is divine. And of course, in our culture, in Western culture, there is no such thing as equality. We might talk about equality, but we don't treat each other from the realm of equality. We still make arbitrary demarcations that say this is good and this is bad. There's only one way to have marriage, which is absolutely ridiculous. There's only one way to function in our society, and that's absolutely ridiculous. So we just have to start remembering that there is only the subjective experience of life itself, and in that subjective experience is divinity itself. Everything else is just authority, and therefore it's all made up in its falsehood.
So the understanding of walking as humans, walking consciousness, you identify a process that is really paramount to opening, to the moment-to-moment living of consciousness. And that is through being ordinary, common humanity, being ordinary.
Well, we've all been taught, one way or another, we've all been taught that the expression of divinity only comes from, quote, superior beings. And depending on what your religious orientation is, whatever your superior being is the source of your religion. So whether we're talking about Krishna or the Buddha or Zoroaster or Moses and Abraham or Jesus or Muhammad, these are individuals who had higher states of consciousness, and we believe that that's the only way that we too can be holy or divine, and that's not true. You are divine by your nature. You are born divine. That divinity within is the exploration of self, and so ego obscures that, and the psychological wounds we all carry create debris that obscures that view or distorts that view. Mm-hmm. But the course again is that it's a way of life. It's not a degree program, you know. It's not like you take a bunch of classes and then somebody ordains you as divine. That's ridiculous. It's how one lives one's life. So being ordinary, or in the nomenclature of today's psychology, common humanity, in and of itself is an expression of divinity. It's the truth of one's real self is only discovered in the pathway of everyday life, whatever your everyday life is. So if you're a homemaker, it's how you align those activities of being a homemaker with truth. And that's the alignment of life and health. So if you're promoting life and health as a homemaker, then you're in alignment. Yes. If you do it as a business person, then you're operating a business of integrity. in which there is no cheating. There is providing a good or a service that is of quality. And in that alignment is divine. If you're a teacher, then it's teaching from a perspective that respects and honors each student, that there is no good student or bad student.
Yes.
There are only students at varying levels. And so each student is accepted from a position of unconditional love and regard. It's not that we have a good class or a bad class. We have a class in which we deal with. So no matter what it is that we do, in the common place of that which we do is the very spirituality or the existence of the divine or God. And they're not distinct or separate. It's not like we isolate it to a service on Sunday or Saturday or Wednesday night or whenever it is that you do your thing. And it's that whole idea that regardless of what we do in our daily life and our common humanity, it's to live with care and kindness. That's the only thing that's necessary. And then the test itself is revealed in time.
So in speaking of the duality that does exist out there, and being that this seminar is about holiness versus truth and our own discernment and personal growth, I was wanting to know, we don't have a lot of time left today, it goes so quickly, but if you would identify maybe it's a kind of a tip of the iceberg for what you're going to be addressing, but maybe some of the upsides and downsides to religion.
Well, all religion started from a position of truth. And when I say religion, I don't really mean religion. I mean the master teachers who are the identified object of the religious belief system. All of them, and we've already mentioned most of them, come from a position of truth. And from that, then, religion can provide such things as inspiration. There may be spiritual facts that are shared and other important information about how to live one's life. But we have to remember that all religion was formed after the fact, that is, after the death of the master teacher themselves, usually centuries after. And so it's linear, it's time-located, body of concepts that were developed in a certain time for a certain culture, and it's not reality itself. And so the downside is that, one, it's not reality, but also this then results in the common violation of the essential truth of religion in the name of the religion itself. We start worshiping the religion instead of aligning with the teachings of the master teacher. And examples of those things, I mean, history's replete with it. Remember the Christian Islamic Crusades had lasted for 1,100 years. Or how about the Inquisition? Or the idea of putting non-believers to death. Slaughtering the innocent in the name of the religion itself, in the name of Allah the All-Merciful. That hardly makes sense. That's a contradiction just in and of itself. Or slaughtering of innocent animals as payment to God for favor, which one of the things we discovered in Hinduism. The political piracy or hijacking of religion by a theocratic totalitarianism, which we now see in the Middle East, and there have even been attempts here in the United States to create a theocracy. The rationalization of non-integrity in the name of the faith itself. If you think this all the way through, religiosity is a subtle form of idolatry that puts the church as an institution above God and above, therefore, truth. Another subtle example of idolatry is the exaggeration of external trappings, the ethnic peculiarities of primitive tribal customs that become the focus instead of the core of spiritual truth itself. In the Middle East, young women who try to get an education are pressured. Sometimes are murdered and they're brutalized. just for the quest of knowledge itself. The idea that women need to be subjugated anywhere in the world is itself a distortion of religion. And these distortions, of course, result in oppression and a violation of the basic religious premises that we all say that we follow and worship. So the defect of religion is just that it's distortions away from truth, which the ego itself utilizes religion to its own end through processes of pride, control, personal gain, prestige, wealth, adoration, social image, and ultimately narcissistic gain.
So that gives you a tasting for our upcoming seminar. If you don't live locally, you have the option to stream us live, and we are excited to have you aboard, and you can interact and ask questions through the day just like you were right there in the present form, in the live form. If you do live locally, or if you do live locally, of course, we'd love to have you join us live at the Hilton. Again, if you are unable to travel to San Bernardino for whatever reason and would like to still be a participant to this seminar, we are almost sold out for the day, but would love to have you join us. The live stream, we have a lot of more options there, unlimited options actually. And I just want to make you aware that Dr. Kurt Bickford is a clinical psychologist, a neuropsychologist, a marriage and family therapist, and an expert in consciousness. He has taught consciousness teachings throughout the nation as well as in India. We have an upcoming opportunity in Japan in the spring, and we look forward to continuing the message on ability, growth, personal development, understanding your levels of consciousness, and the application to your own psychological growth. In his talk, he identifies that the natural state, the personhood, is obscured by the psychological debris and developmental levels, and that ego utilizes the debris to acquire control, authoring our perceptions based on these psychological factors and developmental levels. Otherwise, this stuff's important to know if your intention is for growth. And I would just like to share that for over a decade, we traveled to Sedona, Arizona to work and listen and learn as much as we could maximize in ourselves from our own mentor, Dr. David Hawkins. And today I have the pleasure to close our session with some music that was played every time at those seminars. And it's by Robert Gass, named Curie. And it's beautiful, and I hope you have a chance to listen. Thank you, Dr. Bickford.
Just let me close with this last statement about religion, and it's this. Any religious dogma that denies the equality of all of life and or denies the freedom of healthy expression of being human is falsehood. Namaste.
Namaste.